Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated with the world around you, and I'm reporting to you about civil unrest because your government has been preparing like never before, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I'm here at Activist Post, and it says, new report proves U.S. law enforcement preparing for rioting on a national scale. But I'm also going to show you how the government has purchased 1.6 billion rounds of ammo, and I'm even going to take you to some government documents that also prove that our government and military are vehemently preparing for civil unrest and war against the American people. I'm telling you, this is no conspiracy. This is a fact. And it goes on to say, fascism doesn't often sweep in overnight and take over some hapless nation's government. Rather, it gradually seeps into the cultural fabric as it is quietly taking place around the plane, evidenced by an upsurge in scales of riot equipment that has gone largely unnoticed. Now, what has your government been doing? Later on, I'm going to tell you about UX and Jade Helm and how they're vehemently preparing for riots and civil unrest. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. A new report, and we're going to go to that report later on, from analysts with industry research group Sandler Research, forecasts the plane riot control system market for the next 4 years. Why would they even need to do that to begin with if everything is okay, according to Mr. Obama and according to mainstream media? Obviously not. But beyond a burgeoning market to parallel the expanding global police state, it appears world governments are also keenly aware of what civilian discontent. I hope you're hearing that. Sandler predicts the market will have an annual growth of 3.5%, and making a telling juxtaposition, emphases added, including the U.S. And the report actually says, in quotes, law enforcement agencies around the world are the biggest market for riot control systems. This market is expected to generate revenues of over USD 3.5 billion by the end of 2020. Countries such as the U.S., Iran, Egypt, Russia, China, and Thailand have started procuring riot control equipment and are investing heavily in non-lethal weapons. Why would they need to be doing that unless they're getting for something worldwide? Moreover, special vehicles that are equipped with water cannon and reservoirs have been designed for security personnel for use in areas of conflict to handle large crowds and demonstration. Demand for such equipment is expected to rise during the next few years, and we know exactly what they're getting ready for. And when they say it's expected to rise, no, they already have the equipment and everything ready to go. It's all ready. You've been seeing tanks and military tanks all over the place. Every people on highways, truck drivers can tell you that they've seen military tanks all over the place, even people who work near railroads. What is going on? What are they getting us ready for? Goes on to talk about, in North America, the prominent markets are Canada and the US, and law enforcement agencies in these nations are best equipped with the upgraded weapons. The militarization of the police department and other law enforcement agencies in the Americas has encouraged the use of advanced riot control equipment. Not only that, but we know darn well that George Soros and all these other elite Illuminati Jewish Zionist members are the ones funding these so-called riots and Black Lives Matter and all the other chaos that we see going on. It's even been proven in Ferguson that many of those protesters that you saw weren't even from Ferguson to begin with. So the question is, where did they come from? I don't know. Or do we? But let's keep going. It talks about what the report goes on to also say the law enforcement agencies, they use riot control systems to maintain public order and safety and to enforce laws, and include lethal and non-lethal weapons, body cameras, armored vehicles, and communication systems. What does that sound like? Police state, new world order, martial law. This is not a conspiracy. This stuff is going on right now. We even see that with the Black Lives Matter in Ferguson and Baltimore. We saw that with the armored vehicles and the body-worn cameras and the weapons that they have and the pepper spray and everything. That is not a conspiracy. That actually happened. But I'm trying to tell you that it's all staged and planned ahead of time, that your elite and government are the ones doing this, and they're planning for civil unrest. About to prove that to you so you can stop saying, oh, it's all a conspiracy, oh, it's not really true, it's not happening. I suggest you wake up and think again, because the government's planning for bigger and badder things. And the question is, are you ready to stand in that evil day? Now, this is the actual report from Newsmaker, and we're going to go to what it actually says as Sandler Research. But it says SandlerResearch.org includes Global Riot Control System Market 2016 to 2020, a new research report as of April 2016. Now, it says Riot Control System Market to grow at 5.3% CAGR to 2020, driven by demand for small UAVs and law enforcement. And it says increasing defense budgets across emerging nations such as Middle East and APAC or Asian nations has led to an increase in R&D of new systems. As the equipment used by the law enforcement agencies are outdated, the demand for new systems or upgraded ones has increased over the past couple of years. Moreover, as a result of changing environments and emerging technologies, the defense departments across different nations are developing new weapons. No, they've had these weapons to begin with. They just want you to believe that, oh, it's brand new. Oh, we never had them. I wonder who they're getting them from. I'm telling you, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm just going to leave it at that. But it goes on to say they did a report on it, and it grows at a 5.3% rate during the 2016 to 2020 period. And it even says it generates revenues of 3.5 billion USD by the end of 2020. A lot of this we had already gone over and talked about, but I'm actually going to take you to the actual report now so you can see it. And this is from Sandler Research, by the way. And it goes on to say, of course, you have to buy the report because they really want you to buy it. But it says, the description, law enforcement agencies use riot control systems to maintain public order and safety and to enforce laws. They're used to disperse, control, and arrest people involved in riots and protests. Why would they even need to do that to begin with? If people are peacefully protesting, they have a right to do that. So why do they need police and law enforcement there? Could there be a bigger agenda behind that? Of course there is. And I'm going to tell you what the bigger agenda is and how this relates to the coming economic collapse that's even at the door. And that's not a conspiracy either. But let's keep going. Riot control systems include lethal and non-lethal weapons. You're even going to see that in a government document that was produced by the Army, body-worn cameras, armored vehicles, and communication systems. It also says agencies involved in riot control operations use less lethal weapons such as whips and batons. How is that less of a lethal weapon? That's still a weapon that can kill somebody. Why would they even need to use that to begin with? If you don't think that this is a problem, then you seriously need to think again, because this is some real serious stuff that's going on. Tyranny. Your government's doing tyranny against you to try to kill you in order for depopulation. And I hope you are seeing that. Then it goes on to say occasionally they also use water cannons, long-range acoustic devices, police dogs, armored vehicles, and aerial surveillance, black helicopters. Moreover, security personnel wear protective gear such as helmets, gas masks, riot shields, face visors, and body armor, knee pads, neck protectors, and vests. Why would they need that if people are rioting and protesting and doing it peacefully? Because they say it's involved in any type of riot and protest. That includes peaceful protests, just as we saw in the civil rights era. What are they getting ready for? It goes on to say how they covered in the report how the market is divided into following segments based on geography: the Americas, APEC, and EMEA. It goes on to talk about who are the vendors, the ones funding all of this. They forgot to mention the Jewish Zionists. Oh, they love forgetting to mention them, don't they? Then they also talk about other vendors and market drivers, the challenge and the market trend, how there's an increase in the revenue as well, and other questions that about marketing and how it's a big market, at least for now, until the Jewish Zionists decide to collapse the economy altogether. Because if you don't think they're getting ready for that and have moved into other bunkers, I suggest you think again. This is from Forbes, and it says 1.6 billion rounds of ammo for Homeland Security. It's time for a national conversation. More like it's time for them to stop beating around the bush and admit how they're planning of depopulating the plane, because that's exactly what your government's getting ready for. But they're trying to keep you mentally conditioned as long as possible. Why? Because they don't want you to know the plans of the New World Order, even though it's written on the Georgia Guidestones, which is even in Georgia, which is even at the door. But you think it's a conspiracy, don't you? But it says the Denver Post on February 15th, and this was back in 2013, ran an AP article entitled Homeland Security Aims to Buy 1.6 billion rounds of ammo so far to little notice. It confirmed that the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, and Alphabet Soup has issued an open purchase order of 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition. And of course, that's just what they're telling us. There could be way more, not to mention they have military tanks just like this. It says, therefore, 1.6 billion rounds would be enough to sustain a hot war for over 20 years in America. Woe unto this wicked nation known as Egypt, or should I say America. Then it goes on to say that last September the DHS is apparently taking delivery and that they're even retrofitting vehicles for service on the streets of the US. Over close to 3,000 military tanks, folks. I'm not making this stuff up. You all seriously better wake up and see what's going on and what your government's doing behind closed doors, what these alphabet soups are doing. Rather than constantly listening to them and getting your news from them, you need to honestly wake up and see what time it is. If you don't think we're in the end times, I suggest you think again. But it goes on to say it is utterly inconceivable that the DHS Secretary Jeanette Napolitano is planning a coup d'etat against Mr. Obama, the Congress, to install herself as supreme ruler of the U.S. No, she's not. Obama's going to stay in office. Oh, but they're not going to tell you that, will they? I'm telling you. And it goes on to say, why would they even need any of that? Because they're getting ready for the new world order. And I'm even going to prove to you just exactly what I'm talking about. This is no conspiracy. I'm sorry to tell you this, but this stuff is actually happening and it's going on every single day. And if you're not awoke to this, I seriously don't know what to tell you. But I'm here at Key TV and it says, is UX-16 the new Jade Helm? Now, if you don't know much about Jade Helm, what is Jade Helm? Jade Helm is a military operation that was done back in 2015 in a few states, I believe up to 9, if not more, because that's what they're telling us. I think they did it nationwide. But basically, it was a military drill of the military preparing for civil unrest. And this was back last year, but now it's going on in this year, what's called and known as UX. And what they're doing is that they're placing simulations and other scenarios of civil unrest and how to bang into your door at 4 in the morning and take you to a FEMA camp, or to get ready for civil unrest when there's no more food and when there's no more water in the stores and when there's no more money and no more ATMs, because they're going to shut down the ATMs when they collapse the economy. They as in the elite, they as in the Zionists, they as in your lovely government, and then come out with these tanks and military to say, oh, well, look like this happened, so looks like we'll have to place you into forced relocation FEMA camps. You can look at the lovely executive orders that your lovely government and presidents have signed into office to even prove to you that they're getting ready for forced relocation, because the government, they can do what? They have control of your house now. They can control you, and they have the so-called legal right to move you into a FEMA camp. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is according to executive orders signed by your presidents. Look it up and do your research. But it goes on to say, apparently the quiet streets of Bastrop County worked so well for the U.S. military and their Jade Helm exercise this summer that they're coming back. And it's said that the UX drills are going to be taking place in Texas. I believe they're going to be taking place all over the place. They don't just tell us where, but let's keep going. This time, Special Forces has an unconventional warfare exercise with a catchy acronym. Instead of Unconventional Warfare Exercise 2016, you could simply say UX-16, and that's what Bastrop County Commissioners said as they voted to allow Special Forces to conduct UX-16 training in Bastrop County. Now, mind you, this was announced back in November, so it's interesting that it's not like its predecessor, Jade Helm 15. It's what they're getting ready for martial law, and I hope you are seeing what is going on. And it's not just in Texas, it's all over the place. It's all in America. Honestly, folks, they are ready to go, and they're getting ready for civil unrest, because I'm telling you, when the economy collapses, when they shut down the ATMs, when your debit cards and credit cards no longer work, and when there are no longer any food or water or drinks in the stores, what are you going to do? What are they getting ready for? You will start rioting and protesting on the streets with the sleeping public, because you thought this was all a game, because you thought it was all a joke, even though your government has documentation proving all this stuff. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute, because you need to see the bigger agenda behind all this, and you need to start preparing spiritually. Seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha, so that all may be well with you. It's no longer a game. And to be quite honest with you, it never was a game to begin with. But here I am at AMP, or All News Pipeline, and this talks about what it has begun. Food shortages already in America, and what is coming next is going to be ugly. The crash felt around the world. Now, I'm not going to go deeply into this article because it talks about all the food shortages that have been happening worldwide, as well as the coming economic collapse and how this all relates. I've also done a video on Venezuela and how the government has shut down in Venezuela, as well as a food shortage in Venezuela. I've done 2 videos on Venezuela. Why? Because if you don't think that they're preparing for this for America and in Europe too, I suggest you seriously think again, because that's exactly what they're doing. Remember, they have to prepare and test this stuff in other places, and they've even tested riots in Argentina as and Brazil as well. That's exactly what they're doing and getting ready for, so that they can shut the system down in America. Because like I just said, when the economy collapses and when the sleeping public can no longer get their food and water and their money like they're so used to doing right now because everything's convenient for them, it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be pretty. There's going to be rioting and protesting, and there's going to be people knocking and banging on doors and stealing things and looting. It's not going to be good. And the question is, are you ready for that? Are you prepared for that? Because when it starts happening, that's what your military are getting ready for. That's what your army and your government is getting ready for. I've already proven that with documentations and how the DHS is arming and stockpiling weaponry. Why would they be doing that unless they're fulfilling the plans of the New World Order? Because your presidents have talked about it, most notably George H.W. Bush on September 11th, 1990 on television, exactly 11 years before 9/11. So how can that be a conspiracy? Well, mind control. But now I'm going to even prove to you a document that even shows your military and your government are preparing for civil unrest like never before. I hope this is awakening you. I hope you are awoke to this stuff, because I'm telling you, this is some real stuff that's going on. And for those of you who are already awoke, I hope this is keeping you awake and keeping you updated with everything, because I'm telling you, it's only going to get worse from here. And like I said, the mind control goes much deeper than you think, because veterans cannot tell you this stuff, and they cannot tell you that the military is planning to kill American citizens and kill citizens all over the place. They cannot tell you that the government is planning to do what? To kill so-called dissidents and to call them ISIS members. They can't tell you all that stuff because it's a secret, and they vowed never to tell the secrets. But now the truth is coming to light. And the question is, are you accepting and seeing this truth, or are you going on your merry way thinking everything is okay when everything is saying otherwise? But this is a government document from the Army, actually, and it says internment and resettlement operations. This was done in February 2010. I've talked about this document in numerous of my videos, but it goes on to say this was from February 2010. It's from the Department of the Army. It's a 300-page document that's available, and I'm going to leave the link below so you can see it. But it says internment and resettlement operations, Department of the Army. And it talks about internment and resettlement and the operational environment, internment and resettlement in support of the spectrum of operations, command and staff roles and responsibility, capture and initial detention and screening. What do you think that's talking about? I don't even have to read through it. You can see for yourself on chapters that what they're planning to what? Detain you, quarantines. If you see my Walmart video, then you'll know, and some of my other videos on FEMA camps, then you'll know that they're planning to what? Quarantine you through a staged pandemic that they're going to cause. If it's not going to be the Zika virus hoax, it's going to be some other one that they make up from the Rockefellers and fund from the Rothschilds. But what are they going to do? They're going to say, oh my goodness, here comes a pandemic. Oh my gosh, look at all this chaos going on that they're the ones staging. Then they're going to say, oh, we need to put you in quarantine. We need to put you into a FEMA camp and relocation, forced relocation. And when you get there, your government and military are preparing to screen you and to do other things, dental, medical, in these detention camps. They even have the facilities, or AKA FEMA camps, ready to go. And they have the confinement. And this even talks about the resettlement operations and how they plan on doing it. But what's even more disturbing is this right here, Appendix H, use of force and riot control measures. We were just talking about how they plan on what? Using force and what? basically killing people for simply rioting, whether peaceful or not. Law enforcement versus the citizen. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha, because as you can see, time is running out. And I'm telling you, this is what they're preparing for. Government documents even prove it. But will you sit there and think it's a conspiracy? I hope not. This is Truth Unveiled. Shalom.